In the city of Maradiba, at the corner of the most busy streets of the city is a salon known as Best Day Salon. It was owned by a woman by name Miss Neka, but because of the popularity of her salon, she was often referred to by people as Madam Best Day. Her salon is the most popular destination for women of class and caliber. Ever before you think of coming to make your hair, you would have booked online 3 days ahead of time. Her hours are fully booked. Most days, when you go to Madam Best Day Salon, you will think she won't be able to attend to all the customers who have come to make different sophisticated hair. But to your greatest surprise and amazement, Madam Best Day attends to all of them without any waste of time. Once she puts her hand on a hair, she will part the hair into several parts, and by the time she puts her hand on one of the parts, the rest of the other parts are finished. Her hairstyles can never be seen anywhere around Maradiba. The hair she makes are unique and extremely beautiful, the type you would never see anywhere around. While Madam Best Day makes her numerous customers' hair, her rule have and always remains that you should never look at your hair at the mirror. In fact, at the walls of her salon are beautifully inscribed words written in bold letters. You will think they are words of encouragement until you read them. Never ever bring a mirror or think of using them in this salon. Signed, Management. But why? Asked Ijoma. Why must I not carry my own mirror into your salon or use them? Can't you see other salon? They are the ones who will even provide you the mirror to check up on their work while they make your hair. We are not other salons, stated Madam Best Day. And why did you leave all those your other salons to come here to make your hair? Asked Madam Best Day. If you don't want to abide by the rules and regulation of our business, look, the door is waiting for you. Oh, echoed others. Someone had told you how things are to be done in their business premises, and you are here speaking grammar. Others laughed, while others nodded in affirmation. Ever since I started making my hair here, I have migrated from dating paupers to dating billionaires. The hair you make here will give you a special look which you can never get elsewhere. Best Day Salon is very unique for its range of customers. It's not a place for women who do not know how to spend money on their body. It is a salon for women who knows what's up. The wives of governors, the wives of captains of businesses, the business and working class ladies. To make matters better for them, news had it that most women who make their hair at Best Day Salon always end up finding richer men as their admirers. Best Day's business policy is top-notch. Their business premises, as well as their services, were not left out. In Maradiba City, every Friday is a day marked for burials. On one of such Fridays, 4 highly placed women who happened to know each other at Madam Best Day Salon met at the burial of one of their friends. Mrs. Akabo has always been a fan of Madam Best Day hair. She doesn't fail to make her hair at her salon. As the family of Mrs. Akabo told the story of her life, it was a strange boil on her head that refused to go that took our dear sister, Mrs. Akabo, to her early grave. It was a very emotional time for all the people gathered, including her salon friends. Mrs. Eze, Mrs. Beauty, Mrs. Uche, and Mrs. Ano commiserated with the family of the deceased before taking their leave. However, something striking happened a month after. When they met at Madam Best Day Salon, another set of ladies were discussing about one of her clients who had died 2 weeks ago, and they discussed about the strange boil on her head. It was a strange coincidence, but the strangest blow came when they came again, 2 months after. Yet another customer had died of the same strange boil on the head. This is strange, the ladies said as they exchanged worried glances at each other. Mrs. Eze, most especially, was sleepless about the whole coincidence. It was the strangest coincidence Mrs. Eze had ever heard of, ever since she became a human being. She sat up on her bed all through the night, wondering on her most recent experiences. The next day after Mrs. Eze was back from work, she headed straight to the market to buy a mirror. There is an evil secret lurking behind this Madame Birthday salon, and if there is anyone bent on uncovering it, it is Mrs. Eze. On reaching home, she booked for Madame Birthday services against the next 2 days. On the set day, Mrs. Eze made a video of herself as she hid the mirror in the big bag. She was worried about the consequences of disobeying Madame Birthday's order. Madame Birthday Salon has been in operation for 3 years now, spinning Madame Birthday into excess wealth. But never had it been heard that anyone disobeyed her salon. Ifeoma made a documentary about Madame Birthday Salon. She stated that 3 of her customers had died in 3 months. They coincidentally died of a strange boil on their head. Could it be a coincidence, or is there more to it? In her own words, Mrs. Eze's first step is to break the rule of using a mirror. Then other things might follow. She woke up on the morning of the D-Day more prepared than ever. As she packed the things she would be needing in her office, she added her food flags, her ATM cards, her flat slippers, her work journals, and of course, a medium-sized mirror. She had already booked for Madame Birthday's services. By 4 p.m. that evening, she will be driving in from work. At exactly 4 p.m., Mrs. Eze parked her car at the parking lot of Madame Birthday Salon. She sat down to make her hair. "Good evening, Mrs. Eze," Madame Birthday greeted. "Good evening, Madame Birthday," Mrs. Eze greeted. As soon as Madame Birthday parted her hair, Mrs. Eze quickly brought out the mirror from her bag and placed it on her face. Immediately, Mrs. Eze screamed. But what amazed everyone the more is how Madame Birthday fell to the ground like someone who had formerly not had life in her. Everyone in the salon were surprised. Some took to their heels, while some remained. It's a monster. I saw a monster through the mirror, Mrs. Eze screamed. The people were still more confused, because it seems Madame Birthday had just fainted. Foamy liquids were coming out from her mouth, while some fanned her with their scarves. Some others rushed to the sink, fetched water and began pouring on her. "What's the matter?" asked some of the women. That was when Mrs. Eze opened up. "I saw a monster with 3 heads and 6 hands when I looked at the mirror. I was terrified when I screamed. But what baffled me most is how she fell down on the floor and began foaming. This is a mystery and must be unfolded." Many of the women continued to fan Madame Birthday. She must wake up and tell us her own side of the story. If she's really a monster, then now is the best time for her customers to know. 6 hours has passed, and it's now 10 p.m. in the night, and yet Madame Birthday was not yet awake. But within 10 minutes, she began to mutter under her breath, "This woman has killed me. This woman has killed me. This woman has destroyed my life." Madame Birthday continued to mutter. Now fully awake, Madame Birthday sat up on one of the cushion chairs. Now I would die in 21 days, Madam Birthday said with a tone of finality. By now, the people at the salon had already formed a mob. They were angry at Madam Birthday. Tell us what you're up to. Why is it that the mirror your customer decided to use in your shop suddenly made you faint? If you don't confess what is fishing, we will beat you to death, the angry mob said. There is no need to kill me, said Madam Birthday, her eyes rolling from one side of the salon to the other. I'm already a living corpse. In 21 days I will be dead, with strange boils all over my body. That is my agreement with Obungwangwa, the power broker. When I started my salon some 3.5 years ago, every day I will come to my shop, but there will not be any patronage. My shop was located at number 5 Saloon Avenue, Maradiba. It was an avenue filled with salon. A lot of hairdressers already have large tons of customers. I came to shop every day with no patronage. It was a very hard time for me. I continued cheerfully, believing everything would change. But nothing changed. As months were flying by, I finally had to make a decision to try and look for solutions at the different shrines. One of her friend, Akudo, was at another street of Maradiba. She owns a salon there and was ranking in millions. There was no particular big thing she was doing. She rides a very luxurious car and builds a shopping plaza every single year. I pleaded with her to make space for me at her salon. At least, I can work for you and you pay me like your worker. Akudo laughed at her and said, does it look like I need a worker? You don't know how we run things and you are here running your mouth. You want to get rich and you are here talking. You don't know what to do? For your information, those who want to get rich don't talk. They just do they do. She looked at Akudo carefully. She had no special skill, no special technique better than her, and yet customers lined up begging for her services. The most confusing part about the whole thing is how she was able to attend to such a huge number of customers without any helping hands. I tried to figure it out, but it wasn't making sense. Miss Nneka was determined to crack the code and to prove her friend Akudo that she can play the game even better. She observed that every evening, while others are rushing to go home, Akudo was rushing to go somewhere. One evening, she came to see her. Please, my evenings are always occupied. I always have appointments. Don't ever come to see me again in the evening, Akudo thundered. Nneka was more determined than ever. One evening, she paid a taxi driver known as Udo, please just drive behind Akudo's SUV. Follow her secretly. I just want to know where she usually goes to. If that's the secret to her business, I would definitely prove to her that I, Nneka, can play the game more better than her. Udo waited at a distance from Akudo's shop that fateful evening. Immediately he saw Akudo enter her car, he drove slowly behind her, with Nneka inside the car. After Akudo had driven some distance at the outskirts of Maradiba, she parked her car under a shade and with a nylon and the bathroom slippers came out of the car. She climbed the hilly road to the top of the hill. Nneka paid Udo and bade him farewell. She followed Akudo, making sure she did not see her. She observed where Akudo entered, a fine building at the top of the hill. She went back to Maradiba town. The next day, she was at the same place where she had seen Akudo enter. It was a fine mansion surrounded by a thick bush on the top of the hill. Since Akudo usually goes in the evening time, she decided to set out in the morning time. There, as she approached the building, she saw many pots. Many people were burning fire inside their own pots. No one even looked at her or noticed her presence. As she looked up, she saw a man with a long white beard, wearing a black cloth. The man beckoned her with his hands to come. That was Nneka's first meeting with Obungwangwa. He gave her many categories of charms and rituals to choose from. Nneka chose the Tier 1 category, which involves ripping off her customer's life in exchange of wealth. She will have spiritual helping hand in form of monsters with 3 heads and 6 hands. Every month, she will come to her pot. She would select any of her customers, which she will sacrifice to Obungwangwa from the mirror of her pot. But this tier 1 category is very risky, Obungwangwa warned. A mirror must never come across your shop because the monsters must not be seen by anyone. On the day they are seen by anyone, your pots will no longer accept any other sacrifice but you yourself. Any day a mirror is used in your shop, you will be dead in 7 days after all your wealth vanishes away. But Nneka was more than ready. Akudo thinks she knows how to indirectly insult her. She will show her that she can play the game even better than her. 6 months after her agreement with Obungwangwa, Nneka became the queen of beauty salon in Maradiba. She bought a higher model of Akudo's type of SUV and began to dress more expensively and lavishly than Akudo. Once in a while, Nneka would get on her SUV and dress up lavishly. She will go to Akudo's shop for nothing in particular, just to show the maga that she now has her secrets in her palms and is now on top of her in her own game. Akudo also began to soft pedal. You are looking good though. You finally made it. Thank God for your life oh. I'll be traveling to Brazil next week to get a container load of Wivon for my customers. Then next month, I will be in Vietnam to get another container load of human hair. Wow, congratulations, said Akudo, her face bent. When Neka left Akudo's salon, she bragged to her PA. Did you see how her face turned black with jealousy? She can't even raise her face to look at me. She's so shocked to her marrows. Nneka had continued to be Madam Best Day. She made money, traveled the world, and built so many mansions until the day when her dark secrets were discovered. She also confessed how Obungwangwa inflicts on her customers with strange balls before taking their life. One customer once every month. It's now her turn to be taken. The angry mob at her salon went about burning down her very luxurious salon which she built. They also burnt down all her shopping plaza. They extended their rage on Akudo. We hear that you burn your customers' hair in your dark pots to enrich yourself. This made them poor while their wealth goes to Akudo. Akudo took to her heels, running away barefooted. She tried to withdraw her money using her ATM card, but it was too late. Her account does not exist. It was mysterious. Nneka ran to the end of Maradiba town. With the few notes on her hand, she rented a room in a ghetto house, as boys had already started growing all over her body. She laid on the bare floor, thinking of her life and waiting for the 7 days to be over. Nneka finally died on the 7th day, as she laid on the bare floor, praying to God for forgiveness. The moral lesson of this story teaches us against greed. All business takes time, but with constant effort, dedication, and consistency, you are sure to succeed in no time. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed this story. Please share your thoughts on the comment section below and kindly subscribe as we load you with lots of amazing tales on African Tales by Amanda.